In 2007, my mom bought Pixar's first collection of short films as a Christmas present for my dad, and I grew up watching that DVD. I had seen all of the films dozens of times. These shorts were my introduction to Pixar and one of the things that sparked my love of movies. Even though some of them were essentially tech demos, I loved them and still rewatch them occasionally. So today I am channeling my love of the early Pixar shorts and giving you a brief history of them. In the early 80s, it was hard for the people at Pixar to make even a single image. And a short film would be not only time consuming, but also expensive. With their eventual goal being a feature film, they decided to wait and work on the technology first. When they made their first short, The Adventures of André and Wally, they were working at Lucasfilm, and they hired John Lasseter as an animator. Lasseter had to make character designs out of very geometric shapes, and he could do that for everything except for the body of the main character, Andre. So he went to Ed Catmull, and he created the teardrop shape. It was two hemispheres with the middle filled in by the computer, and it could bend. Lasseter was so inspired by this, he created the character of Wally B. Pixar was going to show this short film off at a big computer graphics convention called SIGGRAPH, and aside from animation done by a real animator, they were showcasing particle systems and motion blur. Even though the version shown was still partially wireframe, it was very well received. Next, they thought they would do something that would encapsulate the spirit of Pixar, Luxo Jr. The Luxo lamp was chosen because it was a simple model, and it was an easy way to show off their new shadowing algorithm. The model for Luxo Jr. was based off Spencer Porter, Tom Porter's baby, because of the difference in proportions between an adult and a baby. Apparently, the rolling of the ball and the waves of the cord were really hard to animate.
The rolling of the ball was such a pain. And I went to Eb and I have to understand, I'm sitting there in front of these very expensive computers with a hand calculator trying to figure out, using my simple, art school math, trying to figure out how, if a ball is this size and is moving this fast, how far would it move? And I thought, what's wrong with this picture? And so I went to Eben. I said, Eben, please, can you do something with a computer to help me with this? So I just animated the path of the ball, and then this amazing program Eben developed made it so the ball rotated accurately. But there was no such help for the cord.
No,
the ripples in the cord were done by hand, and it was painful.
When Luxo Jr. was showcased at SIGGRAPH, it was so popular it got a standing ovation before it even finished. But the most important thing about this short is that it conveyed emotion, which is something that most 3D animated films didn't do back then.
When Luxo Jr. first premiered, it was at SIGGRAPH in 1986. And right after the screening, one of the pioneers of computer graphics, his name is Jim Blinn, he came up to me and says, John, I have a question for you. And I thought he was going to ask me about the computer programs that I was working on and stuff. And I thought, I don't know the answers to these questions. And he said, was the parent lamp a mother or a father? And at that moment, I knew that Luxo Jr. did something that no other computer animation had ever done to that point. That the most interesting thing to the audience was the story and the characters.
The next short, Red's Dream, was made to show off the rendering capabilities of the Pixar image computer and to demonstrate the rendering of highly complex imagery. John Lasseter came up with the idea for an inept clown where the unicycle was the real star of the show. But Bill Reeves was working on Rain and Eben Ostby was working on bikes, so Lasseter decided to take the story he was working on and bookend it with scenes of a bike shop in the rain at night. Lasseter wanted something with more heart, so he gave Red's Dream a sad ending, which a lot of people didn't like.
I remember everybody said, please don't let it have a sad ending. Have it a happy ending. Come on, have the clown come back and buy him. Oh, this is too sad.
John Lasseter got an idea from watching his baby nephew play with toys. That was how terrifying a baby must be if you are a toy. When Lasseter pitched the idea to Bill Reeves, he got excited because he wanted to animate a baby. Tin Toy was the first time they used Mimvy, or marionette, and the first time they used RenderMan. It was also the first time Pixar animated a human, unless you count Lumpy the Clown in Red's Dream. Tin Toy was the first computer animated short film to win an Oscar, but more importantly, it gave Pixar the idea of toys being alive. After all these revolutionary short films, they thought that they should make a short that was easy to make and not very demanding, with a lot of plastic, something a computer could do really well. And that was Knick Knack, which is incidentally my favorite of Pixar's short films. The inspiration came to Lasseter when he saw Who Framed Roger Rabbit and wanted to do something similar to a Chuck Jones cartoon. This short was much more collaborative than the earlier ones. The whole team worked on the story together. Lasseter didn't animate everything, and he let the other animators have space to do what they wanted. After trying 3 times to hire John Lasseter away from Pixar, Disney asked them to create a computer animated feature, but they thought they should make a half-hour Christmas special with the characters from Tin Toy. Disney, however, said that if they could do half an hour, they could do 90 minutes, and that became Toy Story. During production of Toy Story, Pixar stopped doing short films, but near the end of production, they realized it was one of the defining aspects of the company. So they got new directors, animators, artists, etc., to continue production of short films, so they could test their strengths and gain experience. The first of these was Jerry's Game, and they have continued ever since. While the original Pixar short films were revolutionary, the reason they've left such a cultural impact is because they're so entertaining. And in a time where it seems that Pixar has run out of ideas, it's great to see the creativity that goes into their short films every time they come out. Into their short films.